Yes, indeed. Nowadays, Trailblaze missions do tend to be very, very, very long. However, this wasn't always the case. Almost every Trailblaze mission before Penacony range from 50 minutes to 3 hours, with the exception of Chapter 2, Part 1 in Alafu. That mission was around 4 hours long, but 4 hours feels like nothing in comparison to recent quests. The following times depend on you, of course, but here's an idea of how long Trailblaze missions have been lately, and I'm being generous here. Chapter 3 Part 1 was about 4+ hours, Chapter 3 Part 2 was 5+ hours, and Chapter 3 Part 3 was a whopping 8+ hour quest. But then the closing part of the chapter was actually only like 2.5 hours plus, so like 2.5 hours. After that, Finest Duel Under the Pristine Blue, or Feijiao's chapter. In version 2.5, that was about 4 hours, but it was split between 2 parts. So it was 8 hours in total, but this time it was nice since we had to wait for the conclusion in the next patch. So it was 4 hours each, but it was split between 2 parts. And then, oh no, oh god. Banana outrage battles without ninja and humanity. This ran on for about 5.5+ hours. I remember staying up till like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning just to finish this one. Ugh. Then there was the Sunday/Ting Yun mission. That was only about 3 hours to be fair. But then Amphoreus. This quest was about 8 to 10 hours long. This quest was longer than my work shift. But all of this begs the question, is it bad for these missions to be this long? Now you could make the argument and say that content is content no matter what, whether it be story content, end game content, mini games, events, content is content. So you could make the argument and say with these long quests, that means they're giving us a lot of content to get through. You don't have to do the Trailblaze mission in the first day, first 2 days, the first week. Heck, you don't have to do it at all, actually. You can farm whatever you want. But assuming you actually want to do the Trailblaze mission, here's my take on it. In storytelling, there's an extreme for both sides. Have long amounts of yapping that could lead to boredom, or you have a Transformers 4 situation where you just have 2 hours and 45 minutes of nothing but action, and yet you're still bored. You have to somehow find that balance. When it feels like the game is stalling, or it's pulling a Paimon and just reiterating the same thing we already heard over and over again, or it's just talking about nothing, I feel like we just don't need those moments, which in turn would make the quest shorter, right? It's okay to have a long quest, that's fine, but you must keep the you must keep the player engaged and keep things interesting. For example, I love the first hour of Amphoreus. I love the first hour. All new people, all new land. We get bombarded with all these mini cutscenes, a bunch of battles we gotta fight in really early on. And there's so many new things being revealed to us right away. But here's what really stood out to me. Here's what really got my attention. As the Trailblazers, we are literally people who just go to planets with no plan, no warning, and barely any knowledge of the planet. We just see what happens when we get there, right? Besides coming here for fuel, the Astral Express didn't have a goal to meet, and that's what I loved the most. Walking around aimlessly around this place, not knowing what's going to happen next. Will people like us? Will they hate us? Are we breaking any laws? Are there any trash cans here? Stuff like that, right? But not having a goal was fun, and I enjoyed that. But the second we did have a goal is where my enjoyment fell off a cliff, because when you know what you're trying to do, it becomes a waiting game on how long it'll take to get there. All those cool mini little cutscenes we had, there's no more. There's no more. It was all in the beginning. No more. Now every instance is just a screen fades to black, or a screen shows up, it's a black screen with text on it to explain what happened. Somebody could be just picking something up off of a table and it'll fade to black just for that. Nothing is shown when any characters are talking about it. It's just characters standing there. So it's like with each hour that goes by with all this stuff happening, you wonder, dang, we still haven't gotten to Nicodor yet. We still haven't got there yet. We still haven't got there, you know? And every time you go through like a different sequence, I just keep asking myself, man, we still are not at Nicodor yet. We're just going from door to door to door. And to be fair, there were puzzles. I'll give them that. There were puzzles. There were puzzles to solve. But I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me. I just feel like Nicodor was right there, but it seemed like it took so long to get to him. Then, when Nicodor is finally defeated, it's Herta time for like 30 minutes. I do like how Welt and Sunday actually ask her for help at the end, so there's like a tie-in there to Amphoreus. Then, Fanon heads off to accept his trial, and March freezes to death. No, I'm joking, but I just feel like things could have happened a lot sooner, and it could have maybe been like 5 or 6 hours instead, but even still, that's a long time. And I always think, oh, they gotta get this patch out quick, they gotta cut some corners, you know? But even then, like, that just makes it all the more reason to make your story shorter. If you are on a time limit and you gotta get these patches out quickly, then you would make it shorter, right? You'd make less work for yourself. I really do wonder if every mission up to 3.7 will be this long or even longer, so they can like fit in every single Titan story. I'm assuming that's what's gonna happen because we have to deal with each and every Titan individually. So, but I mean, think about chapter 2. Chapter 2, part 2, the Lafu, right? That was the Fantilia boss battle chapter. Guys, that whole quest was an hour and 30 minutes. And it was jam-packed. That was the quest with the Ting Yu neck snap. That was the quest with the boss battle. That was all that in that 1 hour and 30 minute quest. That was awesome. You know what I mean? But once again, in the case of Amphoreus, each Titan's gonna have its own chapter, I suppose. So maybe it's a different story. You know, I mean, maybe it's a different situation here. But in the end, it comes down to another case of the writing being fine, but the storytelling and execution being bad. I want to mention this. I saw a post from MurderofBirds. He was responding to a question that he had, and someone asked him, how do you do it, man? Like, how do you not get burned out of Genshin? And basically his response was, it's not Genshin as a game that does it for him. It's to that. It's the lore of the game, the story, the deep-rooted lore, the background stuff, the world building. That's what does it for him, and that's what piques his interest. And that made me think, if you really pay attention to the lore heavily, like more than just following along, that can be something that gives you a much better perspective on these stories and even engages you more, right? That can be the saving grace. That can be the thing that actually keeps you pushing forward to see what happens in the story because you're so involved in it. So it had me thinking, like, maybe I got this all wrong, you know? Like, maybe I'm not looking at this the right way. Maybe I should be more like him and really look into the stuff to get more out of it, you know? Maybe I just got this thing all wrong. But if you're remotely, like, not following along, or you're just kind of going through the motions, you're probably not going to have a good time. And speaking of that, on the other hand, I've seen videos from Ryuuku Sensei and how he said Star Rail sucks and his 3.0 first impressions. And I gotta say, I really don't disagree with him at all. I really don't disagree. He has some very solid points. I think it's very obvious to see, especially now, and even in Penacony back then. Of course, we have our different opinions in some things. For me, playing Star Rail is fine because you guys accompany me, and you guys hang out in my streams, and you guys make me laugh. We have a fun time. We call things out. We point fingers. We point out flaws. We have a good time, you know, and it's enjoyable as somebody who streams the game. But I'm not gonna lie, if I was at home playing by myself, not recording or streaming or doing any kind of content related thing, I probably wouldn't be doing this. I'm not gonna lie. Of course, like, there are parts where the story will pop off. There are parts where there'll be cool cutscenes. There will be flashy moments, and there'll be a lot of hype as well. They will have those moments for sure. But to get to those moments can be kind of a slog. So long story short, I would say for me personally, it's a lot more enjoyable when the story is on the shorter side or just told very well. Out of all the High-verse games, I think Zenless Zone Zero is the better of them in terms of storytelling. Now, of course, that has its flaws as well, don't get me wrong. But at least they keep it short and sweet and hit us with well-animated cutscene after cutscene after cutscene. And I just think that the way they do it is a lot more comprehensible and digestible. Even if you think the story is bad or you think the writing is bad or it's not interesting, at the end of the day, you're going to be there for like an hour. You're not going to be there for 8, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to have a 12-hour quest in Zenless. So no matter what, whether you enjoy it or you don't, it's very quick. They're very just short and sweet. All the agent missions, even the main missions will be maybe like an hour and 45, maybe over 2 hours. But it's impressed me the most so far within its 5 months. In Genshin's case, there's no excuse. It still has the storytelling issues, the pacing problems, and a bunch of black screens as well. But in this case, it is an open world game. So if it does have a really long quest, it's a world quest. So that's the part that I enjoy. The world quests are actually gameplay oriented and you're not just stuck in a dialogue window for 40 hours. You're actually playing the game. So I can appreciate that at least. And the Archon quest, even 4 years in, the time varies. You know, some quests can be short, some quests could be on a longer end, but you're never really looking more than like 5 hours. I think Fontaine was like 5 hours. Usually Acts 5 ends up being kind of long, but 5 hours at the most. Usually never looking like at any 8-hour quest for Archon quest. It's usually around 4 or 5 hours. So even 4 years in, we haven't gotten to the point where Star Rail is in its 2nd year. So the quests are not insanely long. Their issue is more, like I said, pacing and storytelling. Like, why are we sitting down having a feast when the world is ending, you know? So in the end, I do not think HSR will change anytime soon. I think things will remain the same. That's just my 2 cents on it. You know, I wish they could condense the story a little bit more, but that's not going to happen. We're not playing a visual novel. We're playing a turn-based RPG, you know? And to be fair, in turn-based RPG, it stands for a role-playing game. So, you know, it's not totally off, but sometimes it does feel like you're playing a visual novel. Anywho, what do you guys think about 3.0 story, and how is your experience with Star Rail going so far? Let me know below, but that'll be all for me, and I will catch you guys in the next one.